Hello, everyone. My guest today is Sai Gundavelli. He's the founder and CEO of Solix Technologies, a company that pioneered the concept of enterprise data management, providing the first worldwide infrastructure platform to manage data across all segments of enterprise data. Prior to funding Solix Technologies, Mr. Gundavelli spearheaded several strategic initiatives in enterprise application areas at technology leaders like Cisco System and Ericsson Corporation. Sai is a business and technology thought leader and a distinguished speaker in many forums. So first of all, Sai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to engaging with your team, with your audience.
It's great to have you on the show, man. It's such a pleasure. So let's dive right into it. Tell us a little bit more about you, your story, and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So I, pretty much, let's see. My journey, I did my childhood was in India. I went to university called Usmania University, where I did my bachelor's engineering, and came in 1986 to United States, for my master's engineering. I would say pretty much, I would say your first 15 years, you learn, you educate yourself, you get to start knowing who you are. And then, the journey maybe after the first 15, 20 years starts getting in terms of trying to do something on my own, etc. So I think the game started, when pretty much from an entrepreneurship perspective. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had a business, and I used to help him. And I used to wake up in the morning. We were a lower middle class family. My mom was working, my dad was working. My father used to work in a government office. My mom, and plus we also had a business, and my mom used to run it. And I used to wake up in the morning, go help my dad, mom, etc. That's how I kind of really, beyond going to school, I was involved in family business as well. That was my first, and relatively obviously very young, trying to learn basic things, etc. And after my graduation, I had the fascination, to come to United States. It's the number of jobs in India were relatively very less. I just didn't know it, still enough about myself. I was I just had a fancy idea that I want to come to United States because my dad also wanted to come to United States, and he couldn't really make it happen. And that just gave me some inspiration to come to US. So here I came, I appeared for visa. I got the visa. I was very fortunate enough. There were lots of people who were waiting in the queue to get the visa. I was selected, and among 100 people, maybe I was the only person who got selected. And interestingly, I got the visa, but didn't have enough money to fly. The family did not have enough money, and we immediately started approaching banks to fund us and all of that. And luckily, one day I went to a bank at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 12 o'clock I got the loan sanction. And next day I was on a flight to come to US. So it was a journey where all stars were all lined up to help me. I was very fortunate, and came here to United States. That was in 1986. I came to University of Oklahoma. I came because the cost of living was less. The cost of education was also very less. And I was fortunate enough, after I came, I got a scholarship from the university, and that paid for my education. And I was, just like a lot of people, I was tutoring. I was working in, restaurants to feed myself and take care of myself. And I pursued mechanical engineering because I got the scholarship, but I was good in math, and but I couldn't really afford to get into computer science at that time. Uh, I just didn't know that what kind of an opportunities computers were to bring up, etc. At that time. But I was just good in math. I used to tutor kids on math and all of that. And once I graduated, I had a friend in California, and who said he will, give me shelter in a sort of, and here I come to California. Drove myself from Oklahoma to California. 2 days of journey, 2 days of driving. That was my first, interstate journey, but all the way from
Nice.
mid America to West Coast, and it was a very early stage where the PCs were getting invented. 286 PC, 386 PC. I came and I just I was just looking for a job, and somebody said, "Hey, I'm doing something. I can pay you $1,000 per month. Would you like to work?" And I said, "Wow, that's great." And he was right. He was doing some application development at that time. He was selling this personal computers with some little bit of software to uh, at the time apparel industry. And again, I just didn't know anything. I just got an opportunity. I was thankful to God I had an opportunity, and I was working my tail off, 18 hours a day, trying to learn the technology and all of that. I just and it was I was working in Oakland. I still remember that, and I was fairly very naive. I used to go home around like literally 4 a.m. in the morning, and you know, at that time, prostitutes and all of that. Oakland was not a great place at that time. I didn't know. I was just walking to my place of residence at that time, and and pretty soon, from $1,000, in just 3 months, you know, I they doubled, tripled my salary, and I got to.
So what company was that you were working at back then?
It was a very super small company. Let me just think, like if my mind goes, if I can remember that.
No,
It's been like
it's fine. So you then worked at the company, and then what were the first steps in actually founding your own company in the US, Solix Technologies?
So what happened was like I was working there for a couple of months, and then I got an opportunity at Cisco. Cisco was a very, very small company, super small company. Maybe it had just few hundred people. And again, when stars line up, it all comes your way. That's what really happened. And I got an opportunity from Cisco, and I got the stock options, and that changed, the history. And Cisco was phenomenally successful. Every quarter there will be.
How many employees do they have right now? Like 100,000?
Yeah, I think there'll be almost like 100,000. They're like a legend company at.
And back then it was just a few hundred.
Just a few hundred people. It was
wow, crazy.
It was in East Palo Alto, and it was a super small company. They were reinventing ourselves. The entire internet was being invented at that time. I was very fortunate being at the right place at the right time, etc. They really liked, I understood manufacturing, because I did mechanical engineering, and I was also interested in technology. And they were forming a group called SIM, Computer Integrated Manufacturing. And I got a chance, and it was a phenomenal experience. Most of the people were all in early 20s. I think just the amount of energy that company had was phenomenal, and it was absolutely inspirational. Stock was like a going through the roof, and I was less than 30, and I became a millionaire. And I had enough to kind of really retire before the age of 30.
So you came to the company and they gave you stock options. Is that correct?
Yes,
What you said?
yes.
So how much did they give you?
I think whatever the number they gave, it kind of really, you know, they were having stock splits and all of that. Eventually, they're worth multi-million dollars. By the age,
Yeah,
by the age I hit 30, it was like a multi-million dollars.
that's good.
And
That's good.
at that time, I could have just retired, and but it was, you know, you know, coming from a family from a lower middle class, and seeing the one half of the overall poverty life and all of that, and being so young, I kind of really said, like, when I'm in my rocking chair in my 70s, when I look back, I don't want to think like I was lucky enough and I was fortunate enough. I don't want to be watching a TV and feeling that's all I had done. I didn't have any major business genes. Uh, I didn't have a great persona or anything, but it's just that I wanted to do something in my life. That's all I had. I wanted to do something. I don't know what it was, but I said, like, what I learned in Cisco. What this internet is going to spiral all over the world. At that time, I was involved in implementing ERP application at Cisco. Cisco, when they had when they reached a certain size, they knew that they're going to be in a billion-dollar company. They said, figure out a manufacturing system that can that can help us to grow beyond a billion-dollar company. So we were at that time, SAP was coming, Oracle was in the game, Baan that came from Netherlands. So these are all like applications, that enterprise applications were all coming up, and we went and evaluated each of these companies, very thorough evaluation, and at the end, we all went and selected SAP. It was a very interesting, that was my first how the business really happens, and we all, technically we thought SAP is like a far superior, and at the end, what I came to know, Cisco selected Oracle because, it was a discussion between Larry Ellison and, John Chambers, hey, I'll buy your software, you buy my software, kind of a thing. And we selected Oracle, even though Oracle was less mature product compared to SAP at that point of the time. We selected Oracle. It was an amazing experience going through that entire thing. And they implemented Oracle. So you go, wow. If Cisco can implement, Oracle and think big picture, a lot of other, organizations would want to do the same thing. And I said, maybe let me give it a try. I will go and build a partnership with Oracle and see if I can be in doing the same thing what KPMG did to Cisco on this Oracle implementation, if I can do the same thing for other companies. And given the financial strength that I just had, and the experience at Cisco, I said, we said, like, let's form the company. And luckily, I had a great support from my wife too, and she's also an engineer. She's also a professional, and she also graduated from the same university. Her name is Sai Gundavelli, and she was also working at Cisco. So together we said, like, okay, fine. You know what? You work for some more time, and let me jump into entrepreneurism. So I'm not going to get any salary, and let me see if I can do something. And so we started this company called Solix at that time. And the way we came this word Solix, I was very spiritual, religious. Soul means sun, the sun that you see. And at that time, Unix was just an upcoming, operating system. A lot was going on. I said, look, let's combine soul in Spanish means sun, and Unix. So we said, let's combine this stuff and created a unique word called Solix. And then we got this domain called solix.com, and started this journey of helping companies to help on their ERP implementation, select implementation, etc. I started the company something like in 1996. We call it Solix Systems at that time, and we grew well. We after a couple of years, my wife started her own company. She started a company called Imagia Corporation. She kind of got fascinated on the finance side, and she started another company. And we grew. Solix Systems grew to almost like a close to 200 people company, and we were helping companies on. We were like a mini KPMG.
So how many employees is it now?
I think we started at the time, but around 2002, we kind of really, exited out of that company, and then we created another company called Solix Technologies at that time. So there we were like that company was primarily is on how to implement an Oracle applications, how to help companies provide that ERP platform. That was the area that we were working. But what happened in 2001, in the 9/11, the market crash, and all of a sudden, you have all these Indian offshore companies suddenly took off at that time. And if I remember in 1995, Infosys came and said, like, hey, Sai, can you take us as your vendor? We want to help you on your ERP implementations and all of that. It was a very small company, and come 2000, suddenly the offshore market really took off. All these companies, given the economy, they were just forced to look for low cost technology providers, etc. Suddenly that market took off, and companies were not willing to employ people in the United States because of the cost. And all the business that we invented was kind of really getting shredded at that time. And I was not really well prepared from an infrastructure to become another Infosys or another Wipro. I said, like, hey, look, I don't want to do this business. This is not as scalable. I can't really grow this business. And I kind of really exited out of that business and started a new company. That was the time Google was just coming up. And there was a lot of hype around Google, the search technology and all of that. And it kind of really fascinated me. And
okay.
And I started this new company called Solix Technologies and said, like, look, why can't I help search for enterprises? And I went and partnered with Google to provide enterprise search. That's how I started this Solix Technologies.
Got it. So
go ahead.
Just for the listeners to understand it. So what does the company do and how do you make money?
That's a good question. So Solix Systems was primarily helping companies on, implementing, enterprise applications. We were purely providing services at that point of the time. We were providing some tools and some technologies, helping companies implement those technologies. So our role was primarily more as a expertise, consulting was what we were doing. That's how we were making money. helping companies implement these applications. So when we started this business on this search technology, that exactly was the problem. We took this search technology to enterprises, and they said like, wow, this is great. I can search documents and all of that. But why should I pay you? What problem is it really solving? And I don't even know what applications do I have. I don't even know what data do I have. I was like, wow, you know what? That gave us an idea to say, you know what? Companies don't even know what data they have. Maybe there is an opportunity to discover the data. Maybe there's an opportunity to help them understand what data they have. That's how we kind of really, pioneered on this, data management kind of a concept. And then pretty soon we kind of really felt, we can help companies archive the data, meaning historical data that they don't need to, search every day. They don't need to back up every day. They can get rid of. So we said we'll help companies to discover what data they have. We'll help companies to archive historical data. Is how we, kind of really started our journey, and we started pioneering a product on enterprise data management, and that's how we kind of really started Solix Technologies.
Got it. So just in 2 minutes, because we're running out of time here, what are your 3 main takeaways during that journey, your 3 biggest learnings?
When I started, or at that moment, at the end of the day, I was kind of really, I think the lesson learned, right? I was like kind of really coming from, I sold services, and here I'm trying to build, I know that there's no money in the services, so I got to reinvent myself. And I was like exploring ideas, what can we do? And I hit on this Google and said like, wow, I can do this stuff, but I know that people were not going to pay money on search. But as I spoke to them, I discovered that people still want to know their data. So I kind of really found that nugget on this data management, archiving concept. We were like a fairly very early stage at that time. So we kind of really pioneered the word data management, archiving technology, and all of that. So that's the learning. We kind of really found the nugget. And we found where companies are going to put the money, and we didn't know that data is going to grow so much. I'll be candid, at that time we just kind of really found the nugget. But with years now, we have with what we pioneered, the data management with the AI, machine learning. Now we are all about like how companies can use data to reinvent themselves, how they can. We primarily position on 5 C's. One is cost. How can you optimize your cost using data, whether your infrastructure cost or your supply chain costs, or again, purely from a logs perspective, how you can optimize your cost. And archiving, retiring of data, etc., is all part of that concept. Then the other C is about compliance, like a GDPR is a compliance. Where is my data? If somebody were to come and say, I have a right to be forgotten, can you forget me? So you got to search the data that belongs to that person, search it, encrypt it, or purge it. It's all about the compliance. It's even the new rule that's coming in the United States recently. California and New York are embarking on something called CCPA. So compliance is another driver. The third is about cloud. Now companies started building this massive infrastructures, etc. Now they're just the way somebody said, many years back, the highest paid person in an enterprise was CEO. It was chief electrical officer, not chief executive officer. The reason they had all these, big, turbines or, generators, to monitor at every location how much voltage you need, power, and all of that. It was the chief electrical officer that pretty soon died. Companies don't have chief electrical officer. You plug it in and you get the electricity. So, what I see with cloud, companies are also going to get the companies are going to get the storage. Just plug it in, and that's what is a cloud. And we're also
Mm.
helping companies how to optimize on cloud, how to help them on public, on multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. What data should be on Google Cloud, what data should be on Amazon Cloud, what data should be on premises. So how to optimize the data across this multi-cloud is the other C we also have. Then the other C is also about cash. Companies are global these days. It's all about how do I optimize my cash flow. I've got
Mm.
multiple ERP systems. How do I consolidate all my data and figure out how much cash will be in my bank 1 year from now, 3 months from now, who's going to pay, who's not going to pay, etc. It's an app that we built on top of our platform. It's a cash, it's a consolidation and cash applications, etc. And finally, it's also about the customer. How can you upsell, cross-sell to your customer, bringing in the social data? If I were to, who's going to be buying my product? How often are they logging onto my website? If I can get the logs and clicks and their interaction, and can I predict who's going to be my buyer? Where can I sell my product? What products can I introduce? So it's a cash, compliance, cloud, cost. So it's all helping the overall enterprise and becoming an AI-driven enterprise. And also, we're kind of really looking
Got it.
at every department, how they're going to reinvent themselves in future. The HR is going to be different.
Got it.
The sales is going to be different.
Okay.
So that's what we are at this point of the time.
Okay, got it. So let's wrap up here with the Fantastic Four. Question number one: is there a CEO that you're following or studying right now?
I like Satya Nadella. I like his energy, in terms of how he does and how he communicates and all of that. He comes from the pretty much from the same region where I came from.
Mm.
Some watching Microsoft is what I would say, and then obviously Apple is also a great company, and Google. I've seen all of them in action, and being in Silicon Valley, Microsoft, Apple, Google, these are all my inspiration in terms of how they're reinventing every facet of business.
Got it. Do you have any routines that you strictly follow on a day-to-day basis?
Routines that I do, what I do is I kind of really manage my time. I give an hour to each of the departments, and try to get organize my thoughts in terms of how the department is doing, and how do I create the vision, and how do I have a very detailed in terms of each of the departments. So I spend quality time with each of the departments, but still give enough time for myself that I'm still able to read books. I'm still able to think through from, what's the opportunity? How do I take it? Where do I take it? So kind of really balance my time across my family, across the business, across my interests is what I would really say.
Got it. How often do you do sports every week?
I have a dedicated time, for my gym every evening after dinner, and I also spend
So every
time.
day?
Yeah, every day or every alternate day is, and then I also spend some time on yoga, breathing exercises, etc. I also spend some time on philosophy and all of that. So I'm also a founder of another company called Touch a Life Foundation. Actually, it's something like I founded with my son. It's a non-profit organization. It's again with the data platform pioneering. We're connecting donors and donees. We've created a mobile platform, a social platform, connecting people who need something to people who can give something. It's a mobile app. It's an app. So I also spend time on that one in terms of what can you give back to the society, how you can make a difference, etc. So I kind of really spend time across all these things.
Got it. Last question, Sai. What do you wish you would have started when you were 20 years old?
You know what? I'm just thankful to God. I've got so much of gratitude, for everything. Every day, I just thank God for the opportunity. Every experience, whether the tough experiences, the good experiences, it made me a better person, and it made me thankful to God. I understand the pain. I understand the success, and so I just don't have anything to ask to God. I'm just very, very thankful to God. Every aspect of my life is what I would really say.
Got it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Sai.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for the opportunity.